A smile in the dust. The wind howled across the dry planet. Dust covered everything, even the broken armor on Jake's shoulders. He walked slowly, one hand pressed against his bleeding side. His ship had crashed 2 days ago. He hadn't seen another human since. His water was almost gone. His weapon was almost out of charge. Every step felt heavier. His legs ached and his head felt light. Still, Jake kept walking. Soldiers like him didn't stop. They survived. They were trained for deathworlds. But this planet wasn't on any map. It was red, dry, and cracked like an old wound. Something about it felt wrong. A sound stopped him. Soft, gentle, like laughter. He turned fast, raising his weapon, finger ready. But he saw no enemy. Instead, she stepped out from behind a rock, tall, slim, with silver skin that shimmered in the sunlight. Her eyes glowed like stars and her hair moved like it was underwater. She wore light armor that looked too clean for this place. She smiled. "So, you're a deathworlder too?" she asked. Her voice was soft, playful, almost teasing. Jake didn't answer. His eyes narrowed. He had seen aliens before. Many of them feared humans. Others tried to kill them. None ever smiled like this. "Who are you?" he asked, not lowering his weapon. She tilted her head. "You can call me Sorry. I've been watching you for hours. You walk like someone who's been through pain. Someone who's used to it." Jake didn't respond. He didn't trust smiles. Not out here. "Don't worry," she said, raising her hands slowly. "I won't hurt you. Not unless you try to hurt me." Jake looked around. The place was too quiet. No wind. No birds. No movement. "You live here?" he asked. She laughed lightly. "No one really lives here. Not for long, but yes, this is my world. At least part of it." Jake frowned. "Why are you following me?" "I wanted to see what you'd do," she said, walking slowly toward him. Not many humans survive the fall. Fewer make it past the ridge. He took a step back. Sorry stopped and held out a small canteen. "You look thirsty." Jake didn't move. "Suit yourself," she said, taking a sip herself. "But if you're smart, you'll come with me. You're not safe here. I can handle myself." "I know," she said, nodding. "You're a deathworlder. Your kind is good at that." The way she said it made Jake pause. "What do you mean?" "Two?" Sari's smile grew wider. "This planet is one of the oldest deathworlds in this system. Not many know about it, and those who do don't come here unless they have a reason." "What's yours?" She looked at him. This time her smile faded a little. "Maybe I'm looking for someone," she said softly. "Or maybe I'm hiding." Before Jake could ask more, a strange sound echoed from the rocks behind her. It was sharp, like claws scraping against metal. Sari turned fast, her eyes scanning the shadows. "What was that?" Jake asked, raising his weapon again. "Not friendly," she said, moving closer now. "Come, we need to go. Now." "Go where?" "Underground. They don't follow us there." Jake hesitated. He didn't trust her. But something in her voice sounded real, and that sound was getting closer. "Fine," he said. "Lead the way." Sari moved quickly, almost too smoothly over the rocks. Jake followed, his steps heavier, slower. They reached a crack in the ground, half covered by a metal plate. Sari pulled it open, revealing stairs made of old stone. "In here," she said. Jake looked down, then back. The noise was louder now. Something was moving fast. Something big. He followed her down. The tunnel was cold and dark, but it smelled dry, safe. Sari lit a small light from her wrist. It glowed blue, soft against the stone walls. "What was that thing?" Jake asked. "You'll see," Sari said. "If we're lucky, not today." They walked deeper. After a while, Sari stopped. "You're strong," she said. "Most would have died from that wound by now." "I've had worse," Jake muttered. "I believe you," she said, smiling again. "But strength alone won't save you here." Jake didn't reply. He was starting to feel something strange. Not fear, but something colder. Something that made his skin crawl. As they reached an open chamber with strange markings on the walls, Jake looked around and whispered, "Where are we?" Sari looked at him with that same teasing smile. "This," she said, "is where the real test begins." And from deep in the darkness the clicking sound returned. This time it was closer and louder. Teeth behind the grin. The air in the underground tunnel grew colder the deeper they went. Jake kept his hand near his weapon, but his grip was weaker, now. Blood still leaked slowly from his side, and the pain made it hard to focus. Yet he stayed alert. Something about Sari didn't sit right with him. She moved like a predator hiding under soft skin. Too graceful, too calm for someone in a place like this. She walked a few steps ahead, her wrist light casting soft blue shadows on the wall. Her silver skin reflected the glow, making her seem almost ghost-like. She didn't speak much now. The silence between them stretched longer with each step. Jake didn't mind. He preferred silence over lies. Finally, Sari stopped at a crossroad where 3 tunnels split in different directions. She turned to him, tilting her head slightly. "Do you know why your kind is called deathworlders?" she asked, her voice calm but holding a strange tension. Jake frowned. "Because we come from a planet where almost everything tries to kill us." "Yes," she said, nodding slowly. "Earth is wild. Burning deserts, frozen storms, beasts that hunt in packs, others that hunt alone. Your species was shaped by struggle. Pain made you clever. War made you fast. Loss made you strong." He gave a small shrug. "And what about you? You talk like you understand it." Sari smiled again. It wasn't warm this time. More like a mask slipping back into place. "Because I do." Kirn, that's the name of this planet, was once called the Cradle of Steel. Even the plants here fought for water. The sky rained fire. The ground cracked open without warning. My ancestors were forged here just like you were forged on Earth. Jake studied her carefully. "Then why are we enemies?" She laughed. "Who said we are? Maybe we're cousins. Maybe rivals. Or maybe—" Her smile faded. "Maybe only one of us gets to survive." Before Jake could answer, a distant screech echoed through the stone halls. It was deep, guttural, and followed by the sharp sound of claws scraping against rock. Sari didn't flinch. She just pointed toward the left tunnel. "This way," she said. "The others will follow that noise. We don't have much time." Jake followed, his heart beating faster. The tunnels twisted like the insides of a dead machine. Old carvings marked the walls. Symbols he couldn't read but somehow made him uneasy. Some looked like warning signs. Others looked like tall creatures with long arms and sharp teeth. After a long walk, Sari stopped again, this time at a thick stone door sealed with ancient locks. She placed her hand on a panel beside it. With a soft hum, the locks clicked and the door opened with a slow grind of stone on stone. The room inside was wide and circular, with a floor made of smooth black tiles and walls covered in metal veins that pulsed faintly with light. In the center stood a ring of stone pillars, each etched with marks that seemed to move if you stared too long. "What is this place?" Jake asked. Sari stepped inside. Her voice turned low and serious. "This is where we test them." "Test who?" "Outsiders, warriors, survivors, deathworlders." Jake narrowed his eyes. "You brought me here for a test?" She turned toward him, her expression unreadable now. "Not me, the elders. They want to know if you're really what the stories say. Humans, monsters wrapped in soft flesh, gods in broken armor. They say your kind doesn't break. They say pain makes you laugh and death makes you dangerous." "So what?" Jake snapped. "You're going to watch me suffer and take notes?" Sari's voice grew quiet. "No, I already watched. The real test begins now." Before he could react, the stone door slammed shut behind him. Thick metal bars dropped down with a loud bang. The air in the room changed, thicker, heavier. Something hissed from the walls and a faint mist began to rise from the floor. Jake stepped back, coughing. The mist stung his throat and eyes. He reached for his weapon, but the room started to spin. Flashes of light danced before his eyes. Then came the voices. Not real ones, but memories. Screams from past battles. Cries of dying friends. The sound of bones breaking under pressure. He dropped to one knee, gasping, shaking his head. This wasn't a simple gas. It was something worse. Something made to tear your mind apart. Somewhere beyond the pain. He heard Sari's voice through a speaker. If you are what they say, you'll survive this. If not, the room will bury your bones with the others. His hands touched the cold floor. He forced his body to move. He needed to think. Survive. Find a way out. The walls, the pulsing metal veins, maybe they were part of the system. Maybe. He crawled toward one and grabbed a broken piece of metal from the floor. Using it like a crowbar, he jammed it into the crack where one of the veins connected. Sparks flew. A small explosion shook the floor. The gas began to fade. The mist grew thin. Jake dropped to the floor, coughing hard but breathing cleaner air. When the door opened again, Sari stood there, arms crossed, staring down at him. For the first time, she looked worried. You broke the system, she whispered. No, Jake growled, standing up slowly. I just didn't want to die. She stared at him, her voice low and almost afraid. They will see you now, and they won't let you leave. And this time, her smile was gone. Test of blood and breath. Jake's legs shook as he stood in the open doorway, staring into the narrow tunnel ahead. The gas had left his lungs burning and his thoughts spinning, but something inside him still refused to break. He had been trained to handle pain. He had been through worse, at least he thought so. But this place, it wasn't just testing his strength. It was trying to understand him. Sari said nothing for a while. She simply turned and walked forward again, but slower this time. She kept glancing at Jake as if he had done something he wasn't supposed to do. Maybe he had. Maybe breaking their precious test chamber wasn't part of the plan. But he didn't care. After several turns in the tunnel, they reached a long hall lit by flickering orange lights. The walls were smoother here, not made of stone, but of dark metal. Strange symbols glowed along the edges, some of them moving like they were alive. It felt like stepping into the stomach of something ancient and waiting. Where are we now? Jake asked, his voice still rough. This is the heart of Cairn, Sari said without looking back. Deep under the surface. Very few are allowed to come this far. You should be honored. He didn't like the way she said that word. Honored. It sounded too much like condemned. As they walked deeper, Jake noticed shapes on the walls. Shapes of creatures, maybe warriors, maybe prisoners. Some looked human. Others didn't. Many were shown kneeling, some reaching out with open mouths, others lying still, forgotten. He stopped in front of one image. It showed a figure holding two weapons, one in each hand, standing alone while shadows reached toward him from all sides. But the figure was upright, proud, like it didn't fear the darkness. Who's that supposed to be? He asked. Sari turned to look. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Was it fear? Or was it regret? That one was called the Wanderer, she said. He came long before you. He was like you, from a world of storms and fire. He survived every test we gave him. He smiled while bleeding, laughed while dying. And what happened to him? He became too dangerous, she whispered. So we buried him. Jake didn't ask more. He knew what that meant. He just followed her as she moved again, this time toward a wide door made of black stone. Two tall Cairnian guards stood on each side. They were bigger than Sari. Thick arms, wide shoulders, and eyes like burning coal. They stared at Jake as he approached, their expressions unreadable. Without a word, the door opened inward and a wave of cold air rushed out. Inside was a massive circular room, with a ceiling lost in shadows and a floor covered in smooth white stone. In the middle stood a wide platform, raised like a stage. And in the shadows above, shapes moved. Watchers, a council maybe. maybe worse. Sari turned to Jake. Her voice was soft now, almost sad. You passed the first trial. They've seen your pain, now they want your blood. Of course they do, Jake muttered. What now, I fight one of you? No, she said, stepping back. You fight the air. Before he could ask what that meant, the platform below him lit up. Vents opened. A soft humming filled the room. Then the air changed. Jake dropped to one knee. It wasn't poison, not like before. This was something else, something cleaner but sharper. His lungs felt like they were breathing fire. His muscles tightened. His skin itched like it was being eaten from the inside. The room was sealed now. No way out. His body trembled. His arms felt heavier. His vision blurred. He had been trained in gravity shifts, atmosphere burns, and panic chambers. But this was different. This air wasn't just trying to hurt him. It was trying to rewrite him. He coughed violently, falling forward onto his hands. Sweat poured down his face. The ground beneath him began to twist and shift, or maybe it was just his mind playing tricks. He saw flashes of people he had lost, of old commanders, his brother, his mother. The air knew what hurt him. It fed on it. This isn't a fight, he growled. It's a nightmare. From somewhere above, a voice echoed, old and cold. Then wake up, human, if you can. He closed his eyes and focused. Pain was pain. Fear was fear. They had rules. They could be beaten. Jake had learned this long ago. He slowed his breathing, focused on the sound of his heartbeat, pushed back the memories, blocked the hallucinations. One step, then another. He stood. The air still burned, but now he owned it. He took it into his lungs like fire and turned it into fuel. He roared. Above, Sari watched from a shadowed balcony. Her hands trembled. The elders behind her spoke quietly, some angry, some impressed. He shouldn't have survived that, one said. He did, whispered another. And now we have a problem. Sari didn't speak, because deep in her chest, behind the calm, behind the smile, behind the duty, something else had begun to wake. And it wasn't fear. It was hope. And maybe, just maybe, it was something far more dangerous. Council of the Hunted. The silence after the test was louder than any scream. Jake stood in the center of the chamber, his breath slow but steady, his body marked by sweat and bruises but not broken. The air had stopped burning. The room had gone quiet. Whatever test they had created to break him had failed. He didn't smile. He didn't feel proud. He just stood there waiting, because he knew this wasn't the end. Above him, the shadows moved again. Then came the sound of many footsteps, slow and deliberate. A tall figure stepped into view on the high balcony, wrapped in dark robes that shimmered like liquid stone. Beside him stood 5 others, different shapes and heights, but all wore the same smooth mask. No mouth, no eyes, just a blank face carved from some kind of bone. Jake didn't know who they were, but he felt it deep in his bones. These were not soldiers, not scientists. These were decision-makers. These were the ones who judged. Sari stood to the side of them, her expression unreadable, but her hands were clenched at her sides and her body was stiff, like she wanted to speak but wasn't allowed to. The figure in the center raised his hand. Human. The voice echoed across the hall, deep and cold. You have passed 2 trials, strength and survival. Jake said nothing. He didn't need to. We watched your kind from afar, the voice continued. We saw your rise, your wars, your machines. We saw how your species burned your own world, yet grew stronger from it. Others feared you. We studied you. Another elder stepped forward. His voice was older, but slower. Some say humans are a mistake. Others say you are the future. You evolve through conflict. You grow through pain. You build cities on bones. Jake tilted his head. And what do you say? A long pause. Then the center elder spoke again. "We say, you are dangerous." Jake smirked slightly. "You're not the first." The elder didn't react. "And like all dangerous things, you must be tested, understood, controlled." "You think you can control us?" "No," said the elder. "But we can decide how much of you the galaxy should see." Jake stepped forward slowly. "You're scared." Finally, the elder's voice shifted. Not angry, not defensive, just honest. "Yes." A heavy silence followed. Sari looked away, her face tight. Jake could feel it now. The truth. All of this, the tests, the underground chamber, the games. It wasn't about knowledge. It was about fear. They were trying to measure the size of the storm before it reached their doors. "So what now?" Jake asked. "You kill me?" Another elder leaned forward. This one had a softer voice, but with a bite underneath. "We offer a choice. We can wipe your memory, send you back, tell your leaders you failed, that the planet was empty, or..." Jake waited. "You can stay. One more trial. You face our champion, a warrior shaped by centuries of battle. If you win, we let you speak. If you lose, your kind loses its chance." "Chance at what?" "Peace," the elder said. "Or war. The galaxy listens to us. We decide what stories are told. We decide what species are threats and which ones are allies." Jake didn't trust them. Not a single word. But deep inside, a thought echoed. This was bigger than him. If he walked away, Earth might never know what the galaxy truly feared. But if he stayed, he could force them to see that humans were more than survivors. They were something else entirely. He looked up at the council. "Fine," he said. "Bring your champion." The elders nodded. The floor beneath Jake shifted and began to descend like a slow elevator. As the chamber above grew distant, Jake glanced up one last time and caught Sari's eyes. For the first time, she looked afraid. Not for herself, but for him. The platform stopped in a deep pit, lit by red lights. The walls were smooth like polished bone. On the far end was a closed gate with thick bars and warning symbols. Behind it, something moved. Jake stepped into the center of the arena. He heard the hum of machines, the sharp buzz of energy fields locking in place. A voice echoed from above. Not the elders, but Sari's. "Jake, listen to me. This isn't a beast. It's not an alien. It's something else." "What do you mean?" he called back. But the gate had already begun to open, and from the shadows stepped something that made Jake freeze. It wore human armor, old, rusted, marked with the same symbol Jake had seen on his own squad long ago. The man beneath the helmet looked human, but his eyes were wrong. Too wide, too empty. And the way he moved, stiff, sharp, like a puppet made of scars. Sari's voice came again, shaky. "He was one of yours, captured years ago. They broke him, rebuilt him. Now he only knows how to kill." Jake stared at the broken Marine as he stepped into the light, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't sure he could win. Not because he was afraid to fight, but because he might be looking at his future, and it terrified him. The warrior beneath the skin, the gate shut with a hard slam behind the broken Marine. The sound echoed like thunder inside the cold stone arena. Jake didn't move. He just stared. The man in front of him wore pieces of old human armor, dented and scratched, the paint long gone. The face under the cracked helmet looked pale and hollow, but familiar in a way that struck a deep place in Jake's chest. It was like looking into a mirror from another timeline, a mirror where everything had gone wrong. The Marine's eyes were wide, unblinking, lifeless. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He only stood there with his fists clenched tight, his fingers twitching like they were remembering the feel of a trigger. Jake didn't know his name. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe the name had been taken from him the moment the Kiernians captured him. Above, the elders watched without a word. The arena was silent. Even Sari had stopped speaking. Jake looked up, searching for her face in the shadows. She was there, standing behind the balcony edge, her hands gripping the stone rail so tightly her knuckles had turned gray. "How long has he been like this?" Jake asked aloud, not expecting an answer. The Marine lunged. No warning. No build-up. Just sudden, violent movement. Jake barely rolled out of the way as a metal fist slammed into the ground where his head had been. The floor cracked. Dust flew. He jumped back, raising his fists, weaponless but not helpless. The Marine didn't stop. He came again, silent and relentless, each strike fast and practiced. Moves Jake recognized from training drills back on Earth. They had taught him to fight like this. But now, that knowledge worked against him. The Marine knew every block Jake would use, every step he'd take. And he didn't hesitate. He didn't feel pain. When Jake managed to land a blow to his side, the man didn't even flinch. He just kept coming, like a machine wearing skin. "You're still in there," Jake muttered, dodging another strike. "Aren't you?" No answer. The Marine grabbed him by the collar and threw him against the far wall. The impact knocked the air out of Jake's lungs. He hit the ground hard and rolled over, spitting blood. His ribs hurt, maybe cracked, maybe worse. But he had one thing the Marine didn't. He was still free. As the Marine charged again, Jake pulled a small shard of metal from the cracked floor and tossed it toward a control panel on the wall. It hit just right. A spark flew. The lights above flickered. The floor trembled for half a second. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The Marine paused, not confused, but distracted. Some part of him responded to the change, maybe training, maybe memory. Jake used the moment. He tackled the man hard, aiming for the helmet. The two crashed to the ground, rolling in a blur of fists, elbows, and grunts. Jake ripped off the Marine's helmet and froze. The face beneath was human and broken. Scars ran across the man's cheeks and forehead like wires burned into flesh. One eye had been replaced with a cold metal lens. The other eye, still real, was full of something Jake didn't expect. Fear. Not rage. Not hate. Just raw, silent fear. "They made you like this," Jake whispered. "But you don't have to stay that way." The man didn't speak, but his hand stopped moving. For a second, and in that second, Jake didn't punch him. He helped him up. The elders above shouted something in their strange language. Warning alarms flared in the distance. Jake didn't care. He kept his back to the guards, his eyes on the man who had tried to kill him. "You're not their toy," Jake said. "You're still human." The man's metal eye blinked once. Then he stepped between Jake and the wall, just as a laser bolt shot down from above. The beam hit him square in the back. Jake screamed, grabbing the man before he fell. Blood leaked from the wound, slow and dark. The Marine looked up at Jake and whispered one broken word. "Run." Then he fell. Sari's voice rang out from above. "They're sending soldiers. You need to move." Jake didn't look up. He was still kneeling beside the man, teeth clenched, breath sharp. "I'm done running," he growled. Then he reached for the fallen Marine's arm and pulled free a hidden blade. His eyes locked on the gate as it began, to open again if the elders wanted war. They had just made their first real mistake. They had taught him what he could become. Now they would see what happened when a deathworlder stopped holding back. Betrayal in the dark alarms wailed through the tunnels like the cry of some wounded beast. Red lights blinked along the walls as doors sealed and turrets dropped from hidden slots in the ceiling. The elders were panicking now. Their voices barked through hidden speakers, ordering containment, alerting guards, locking systems. But Jake was already moving. He sprinted down a narrow corridor, the dead Marine's blade gripped tight in his hand. His chest burned, his legs ached, but none of it mattered. Not after what they had done, not after what he had just seen. They had turned a soldier, a human, into a weapon, and when that weapon hesitated even for a second, they erased him like trash. Sari's voice crackled through a hidden comm in the wall beside him. "You need to head for Sector 9. I'm unlocking the route, but you have to be fast. sending hounds after you. You knew, Jake said, his voice low, broken with rage. You knew what they did to him. A pause. Then her voice came again, softer now. I tried to stop it. I tried to help him. I failed, and if you don't move, I'll fail again. Jake didn't answer. He turned a sharp corner, barely dodging a laser trap that fired from the floor. He dropped, rolled, and kept running. His mind was spinning, not from fear, from realization. They hadn't just been studying humans. They had been preparing for them. The next corridor opened into a chamber with high ceilings and hanging roots that pulsed with strange light. It was older than the rest, a place not touched by metal or machines. Jake slowed, unsure. Something felt different here. Sacred, maybe. Or dangerous in another way. Then he saw her. Sari stood in the center of the room, her armor torn, blood dripping down her side. One of her eyes had changed, the iris now glowing a dull red. Behind her, 2 Kyrnian guards lay unconscious, maybe dead. Jake raised the blade. Why are you here? Because this is the last door, she said, her voice steady, and you'll never reach it without me. He didn't lower the weapon. Sari stepped forward slowly. This planet isn't just a place of tests. It's a vault. It holds things the galaxy was never meant to see. Creatures, weapons, histories. Too dark for the stars? Then why bring me here? She looked down, ashamed. Because I didn't have a choice. Those words cut deeper than Jake expected. I was born here, she said quietly. But not like the others. I wasn't chosen for the council. I wasn't meant to lead. I was raised in the lower tunnels, where the failures live. They gave me a task. If I could survive, if I could prove myself, they would let me join them. My task was you. Jake clenched his jaw. You were sent to betray me. No, she said quickly. I was sent to watch you, to lead you into the tests. But I didn't know how far they'd go. I didn't know they'd use one of your own. I didn't know they'd kill him for hesitating. He looked into her eyes. One glowing red, one still soft, still human in some strange way. He wanted to hate her, wanted to see her as just another trick, another mask. But he couldn't, because she looked like someone who had been trapped her whole life. Just like the Marine. Just like him. Why help me now? He asked. She hesitated. Because you did something no one else has ever done. You stopped fighting. You reached for him instead of killing him, and he reached back. She took another step closer. They fear your kind because they see your strength. But they don't understand your mercy. They think kindness is weakness. But I saw it break one of their perfect soldiers. I saw it change me. Jake lowered the blade just slightly. We don't have time, Sari said. The last gate is near the surface, but the path is locked. We'll have to pass through the ancient zone. What's in there? She looked away. Memories. They moved fast through twisting stone paths lit by soft blue veins in the walls. The deeper they went, the more Jake noticed strange statues. Figures carved from dark rock, all shaped like warriors. Some looked like aliens he had never seen. Others looked eerily human. Each one held a weapon. Each one had a mark carved across its chest and the Kyrnian symbol for fallen. They honor the ones they couldn't break, Sari explained. And what happens if they break me? Jake asked. She didn't answer. As they reached the final corridor, the ground shook. Distant explosions echoed from behind. The council wasn't waiting anymore. They were destroying the tunnels to stop him from escaping. Sari rushed to a control panel built into the wall and began to type in a series of codes. This door leads to the last elevator, she said. It will take you to the surface. There's an old launch pad. You can steal a transport ship from there. What about you? Jake asked. Before she could respond, a deep growl rolled through the chamber. The shadows at the far end twisted and shifted, and a massive shape stepped into view. 8 feet tall, long arms, thick scales like metal plates, red eyes like burning coal. They released the war beast, Sari whispered. I hoped they wouldn't. It's one of the last living weapons from the old wars. It doesn't stop. It doesn't feel pain. And it remembers me. Jake turned toward the creature. The blade in his hand felt too small, too light, but he stepped forward anyway. "Get the door open," he said. Sari grabbed his arm. "You can't fight that thing." "I won't have to," he said. "Then how?" He smiled grimly. "I'll distract it." And without waiting for her answer, Jake charged into the dark, straight toward the beast, that once brought planets to their knees. Deathworld hearts, the beast moved like thunder wrapped in flesh. Each step made the floor crack. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp, stone-colored teeth. Thick black drool dripped from its jaws, sizzling where it landed. It was not just alive. It was ancient. It had survived 1,000 battles. Its skin was like armored steel, its muscles packed tight with brutal power. The Kernians didn't send it to win. They sent it to end. Jake didn't stop running. He had no plan, no backup, only a stolen blade and a body pushed far past exhaustion. But that didn't matter. He had fought monsters before. Some wore scales, some wore uniforms, others wore human faces. He knew the real war was never about weapons. It was always about who refused to die. The war beast swung first. A massive claw sliced the air inches from Jake's head. The wind behind it was so strong it nearly threw him off his feet. He ducked, rolled, and stabbed upward. The blade bounced off the creature's chest like it had hit a wall. The beast roared, the sound shaking loose dust from the ceiling. Sari worked quickly behind the locked gate, her fingers flying across the panel, rerouting power, overriding security. Her hands trembled. Not from fear of the beastman, but from fear of what Jake was becoming. She had watched him take beatings no one else survived, stand through poison, gas, loss, betrayal, and now face something no Kernian dared challenge. And still, he rose. The war beast struck again. Jake barely dodged. Its claw grazed his arm, tearing flesh open. Pain screamed through him. He didn't cry out. Instead, he used the momentum, sliding under the beast's legs and jamming the blade into a weak joint behind the knee. This time it sank in, not deep but enough to make the monster stumble. It turned fast, rage burning in its eyes. And now, it took him seriously. The next strike sent Jake flying across the chamber, slamming hard into a pillar. He coughed blood. His vision blurred. His legs didn't want to move. But he forced himself up. "You still standing?" Sari called out, her voice shaking. "Not for long," he grunted. The beast charged. Jake didn't run. He waited, counted the steps, waited for the right moment. Then he ran toward it. At the last second, he dove to the side, letting the war beast slam into the pillar behind him. The structure cracked, stone and dust raining down. The creature staggered, shaking its head. Jake limped toward Sari. "Door now." "Almost there," she said. 10 more seconds." "We don't have 10. The beast turned again, slower this time. Its leg dragged slightly. Jake's blade was still stuck behind the knee. It roared and charged again. Sari threw herself against the panel and slammed. Her hand down. The gate behind her opened with a loud hiss. Jake didn't wait. He grabbed a fallen metal rod from the floor, spun it like a spear, and hurled it at the creature's injured leg. The hit was perfect. The beast screamed and fell to one knee. "Go!" Sari shouted, reaching for him. Jake ran. They bolted through the gate as the tunnel behind them began to collapse. Rocks fell. The war beast let out one final roar, not of pain, but of hate. They didn't look back. The path ahead led up, finally sloping toward the surface. Old roots hung from the ceiling, and cold wind rushed through the cracks. They burst through the final door and stepped into the gray light of Kern sky. The surface was quiet. Ash clouds swirled above, and the wind tasted like rust. An old landing pad stretched across a broken hill. On it sat a single transport ship, ancient, scratched, but intact. "You said this thing flies?" Jake asked. "Barely," Sari replied. "But it'll get you off this rock?" Us, he corrected. She froze. You want me to come with you? They'll kill you for helping me. I know. So come, he said. Earth has room for people like you. Sari looked up at the sky. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel chained to the planet beneath her feet. She nodded. They boarded the ship together. Inside, the systems lit up slowly. The engine coughed, sputtered, then hummed to life. Jake sat in the pilot's chair. Sari leaned against the wall, watching him. What will you tell them? She asked. When you return? He stared at the dusty sky through the cracked glass. That we're not the only deathworlders, he said. And that not all monsters come from Earth. The ship lifted, rising into the storm clouds. Deep below, the war beast screamed into the tunnels. But above the clouds, the stars waited, and somewhere inside, two hearts that should have hated each other. Something ancient and powerful had been born. Not fear, not rage, but unity. And in the cold silence of space, the galaxy shivered, because it finally understood. A deathworlder alone is a threat, but two together is a warning.